Okay, we will call this agenda priorities meeting to order for November the 17th. It's 3 p.m. And I please ask Councillor McKellar to read the land acknowledgement.
The town of Innisfil acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Kainai, the Piikani, and the Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nations and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3, within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge that many First Nation Métis and Inuit who have lived in or cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McKellar. I'd also like to acknowledge that November 15th to 22nd is Métis Week in Alberta and across the country, and we just want to acknowledge and honor the history of the Métis people and their contributions to our province. So we'll move on to 2.1. Any additions or deletions? Okay, can I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we'll move into 3.1 with CEO Becker on council engagement.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Hello, council. This report, council outlines what council traditionally does throughout the length of their term, is to engage with different community organizations, agencies, boards, commissions, provincial ministries, etc. Don't want to assume that council wishes to proceed in that fashion, but likely you do. The attached list is just an introductory list of potential engagements you may want to consider based on council's acknowledgement that you wish to proceed in engaging with these types of groups. It would put it back to administration to start booking different meetings based on a pace that is slower and not too speedy to put a lot of strain on council on your busy schedule already, but certainly would help us start to coordinate these times over the next 6-8 months. This is not all-inclusive list, so there'll be other meetings you wish to entertain as you proceed in other engagements. But I just want to stop there, council, and see how you wish to proceed, and if this list is appropriate for to initiate your engagement process.
Sure. Thank you, CEO Becker. So I'll just start. Well, I'll start on my right-hand side today. So Councillor McKellar, just if you have any feedback on this item, and whether you would like us to continuing on engaging like as we did last term. And
Mayor Barclay, no problem with the list. I haven't come up with any other ideas at this point, but I certainly think this is a great starting point.
Sure, thank you. And Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barclay, no concerns with the list. I think it looks pretty extensive, but things may pop up.
Yeah, they do. Okay, Councillor Heistad.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. The list is great. Just for the new councillors, I really like the community visits with the business visits that we had last year. I thought they went really well. We got a lot of positive feedback from that. So, but the list looks great to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yes, I agree with my colleagues. I am fine with the list. I think it's critically important, actually, that we meet with the local school boards because they have extensive new leadership both in their division offices as well as on their boards of trustees. And of course, the same with Red Deer County, who we meet with anyways. But otherwise, I'm good with the list.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Strong.
Mayor Barclay, the community groups, I noticed we're missing the Legion there. Is that something we normally do visit? I just happened to notice it was omitted. Otherwise, I'm good with everything.
Thank you. And Councillor Hill.
Yeah, I was just also looking, I understand that obviously we do our best to get out into the community for grand openings and stuff like that, and I understand it's pretty hard to iron out exactly what dates are going to be, but I think obviously as an ongoing effort to keep that up. There was one on the weekend, Rock Athletics, that I think if there's a policy or whatever it may be, maybe, I don't know what our policy is for attending or if we give something, but would like to know a little bit more about that in the near future.
Yeah, we always attend when we're invited. It's up to the business to invite us. And also for every new business in town, anytime we get a new business license, there's a letter that goes out from me and a certificate of recognition for opening the new business. In that letter, there's information into our directors along with phone numbers. So always go when we get the invitation, and didn't happen to get one for that particular event, but
Thank you.
no problem. And also, I know that the list isn't extensive and you're still working on it, but I know last year we also had the Innisfil Day Home in, along with the food bank and potentially Christmas Bureau, that may come through FCSS, so trying to fit into those social connections and understand what's going on in that realm of area as well. So, no, sounds good. So carry on, we will. So I'll just have someone then please make a motion that we accept this report as information. Councillor Heistad.
Yeah, I'll make that report or motion that council accept this report as information.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. All right, and we will go into a strategic plan overview with CEO Becker.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. The intent of this report is to provide new council an understanding of the focus area of previous council as you move into your planning sessions in early January 2026. As you can see in this report, council, through a facilitated process, came up with 4 strategic pillars outlined as a connected community that fosters a sense of belonging, a robust and adaptable economy, respect for our environment, and provide strong leadership. Attached to this report is the actual strategic plan, as well as a list of the strategic plan achievements, which I'd say are not all-inclusive. There's a lot of finer detail that lines into the strategic plan, which did not make it onto the list, but there's a lot more detailed information that has been achieved through the last 4 years. So I'm just going to kind of comb through the strategic plan, and again, council, if you have any questions or comments, be happy to stop and have a conversation with you. As you can state here on this page, council did drive at the vision, and again, I won't read that to you, along with the current mission and the values that went through a process to develop these 5 detailed values. The priorities are listed there in the box, and I'll just kind of highlight the different areas or key goal areas of the plan, which does tie into the next document. But a connected community that fosters a sense of belonging. The key goal areas and focus initiatives included increased recreational opportunities for residents and visitors, maximizing the health, the safety, and well-being of the residents, increased community spirit and support arts and culture organizations. And maybe I'll just stop at each section, council, if there's any points of clarity, if there's any other comments as per the section. And if not, I'll continue on. A robust and adaptable economy. The key goal areas and initiatives included to strive for more diverse, affordable, and accessible housing, foster a healthy economic development ecosystem. Those are the focus areas. So again, any question or comment for clarity? Okay, respect for our environment included the goal areas. Focus on Innisfil's energy sector while being good stewards of our natural environment. Develop a robust asset management plan and matrix to understand the current state and future needs of Innisfil's infrastructure. And again, I'll stop there for a second. Then lastly, provide strong leadership. What's the key goal areas and initiatives to provide excellency in all levels of the organization. So reading off the strategic plan, the new council may see some similarities or some themes that have occurred in some of our previous conversations through your orientation. If not, you'll hear more through the budgetary process, and certainly see how council wishes to proceed early in the new year. If this is a similar focus area that you wish to continue on, or something totally different based on how you individually and respectfully council as a whole wishes to proceed. Lastly, the more detail is provided for your review. Again, I'm not going to review each section in detail, but I'll leave it to you, Council, if there's any questions on any of these items, and even the returning council members, if there's anything else you wish to highlight based on your experience. That's my report.
Sure. I don't know if anybody has any questions about these individual items, like the completed achievements. We can give you some history on any of them. You know, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, that was a framework that was developed by BASA Social Innovation this past term. I'm sure you'll see the document as we move forward. I don't know, do you want to just give a little history, sure. Maybe Director Jenkins, on the PACE transportation and how that evolved from the Legion to the town of Innisfail, and just so people understand that?
Yeah, so 2022, I believe we transferred our service. Previously, the Legion was administering and hired the drivers for our PACE bus. We do have two vehicles, the larger 14-passenger van and then a smaller wheelchair accessible van. We made the move to move over to the contracted service, largely as a result of sort of service level and kind of health, safety, and liability concerns associated with that. The previous arrangement, so we have been with Prairie Bus Lines provides the service now, so essentially the town leases the buses to Prairie, and they manage the dispatch, the hiring of the drivers, and the management of that service. We have the in-town service, which is the bus you see driving around for the most part. It will go to Bowden, to Penhold, and sort of everywhere in between. In Innisfail, in town is a $5 one-way trip. We are currently, I've got some stats prepared for budget. I think I said we're around that, about 120 passengers a week is where we're getting to. 114, see, I was pretty close. Yeah, and it continues to grow. People can book both through the phone and online. And yeah, continues to, we offer service 7 days a week, so 9 to 4 during the week, and then on the weekends, 9 to 1.
We do get a transportation grant, correct?
We utilize some of our provincial funding, gets
yep.
allocated
Yep.
to the PACE program, yeah.
Okay. Just going forward, I'm curious if there's any opportunities through FCM and their rural transportation program. Maybe you've looked into that or are looking into that, but...
A lot of the grant programs will support you in the buying of the vehicles.
Okay.
Operating costs are always a challenge.
Okay.
We have actually been working with McMahon, though, as looking at ways, they're looking at ways to apply for some grants to help augment some of the transportation costs, particularly on the out-of-town appointments. Some of those longer, we will take people to Calgary and Edmonton with the bus. It doesn't happen often and does get quite expensive, but we have had people who don't have any other options, and that they utilize it. So we have been working with them on some grant proposals that would help, particularly for those further afield appointments.
There was a grant at one time, right, Director Jenkins, through the U of A, didn't we?
Yep.
We got that originally.
Yeah, that was the original when
yeah.
we bought the smaller van. We had some grant funding there.
But more for the vehicle, not for the
Yes.
operations. Okay. Okay. No, thanks. Anybody else have any questions about page one? Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I don't interrupt on the piece.
No.
I was just thinking, based on your question and then a detailed response from the director, maybe we should go step by step. I know just spend 15, 20 minutes just
Sure.
to give a little detail for
I think it'd
new
be
council.
interesting for new
It would,
councillors.
and
Yeah.
get some context as we lead at the budget too, if
Sure.
the council's okay with that. Okay. Sorry, council. Just going to heliport reconstruction. I'll just introduce, if there's finer detail, I'll put it over to the respective director. This was funded by the town of Innisfail. Heliports in Alberta, largely, there's a few that are built and operated through municipalities, but largely they're built through AHS. And in this case, we didn't fit the detail to be able to have a partnership or funded by AHS, and council at the time decided to fund this project solely on its own at the current location. At that time, the heliport was in desperate need of upgrade to meet the requirements. That's why that was updated. Now we have a detailed operational plan associated with that operations and with the partnership with such agencies as STARS and the hospital itself. Downtown land acquisition, as you can see on Main Street, it's across from Scotia, the Banker's Corner. The town council decided to purchase those lots based on be able to influence future investment in that area in the future. Aquatic Center validation, that was completed in light of moving the project of the Aquatic Center forward. A community safety and well-being plan, the mayor did mention, external contractor was put in place to build out a community safety and well-being plan. The committee, policing committee will see that in more detail. It may be advantageous for council to see this in due time too. But as a framework to drive action forward. I think the director could speak a little more detail to this, but based on community surveying, relatively the community feels safe here in Innisfil. There was an engagement with youth in the schools, which was also advantageous for the plan. Access to emergency services, that was an internal organizational reorganization through the town. PACE, as per the director's comments, public art framework. I know there'll be some questions to council, and I'll put it over to you, director, just on, as it will come into budget conversation, but there was a framework and an engagement process conducted, but now we're just requiring funding to advance the strategy if council so desires.
Yeah, not a lot to add. We did sort of adopt council adopted the public art plan, which laid out a 5-year implementation strategy, including additional staff to administer and work through that process. So it will be something that council has the opportunity to weigh in on as part of your budget process.
Thank you. There's some policy changes and new policies in place. One specifically grant sponsorship policies, just a little bit more concise direction as per council approval. And there's a list there of some of the grants that were developed or amended. Increased recreational opportunities. You can see some playgrounds and community use areas were either updated or added, such as the disc golf course and the Diamond 7 upgrades, which was a partnership with the Innisfil Community Facility Enhancement Association, which is a nonprofit made up of some citizens to help with that project of the new Diamond 7. As well, enhanced outdoor gathering areas at Dawes Lake. As you can see, well, in progress, I'll just highlight pool modernization, Rotary Bike Skills Park development. So leading up to the election, Rotary approached the town, I guess several months prior to the election, about the potential to develop a bike park on the old landfill area where the old skate park was, or the hills. So that's, you'll see some of the detail there, driven by the Rotary. Council has not provided approval yet. It's left with you, council, to review the detail of what they're proposing and determine how you wish to proceed. With that, right now, there's not an ask from budget, just support at this given time. So that'll come to you probably as a budget, identifying a project, but not for funding requests at this time. More detail to that project to come to you in the near future. Trail network upgrades for outdoor gathering areas, enhancing downtown with lighting and gathering spaces. The next section, completed achievements, power play strategy. That's the economic development strategy, which is, again, you're going to see this during the budget process, consideration of an updated plan. But that strategy was developed by an external consultant through a community economic development model versus a traditional municipal model. The key driver into setting strategy and vision forward on some of the work we're doing in the community with economic development. The Southeast West Industrial Park was developed, significant investment, and you can see that developing out currently. Municipal Energy Hub will be identified with the economic development strategy update, or maybe more detail to come on this, but through a process through the Energy's Futures Lab, which is a nonprofit social enterprise funded by many stakeholders from large banks to oil, gas companies, the government. We participated with the Energy's Futures Lab, and they hosted a year-long roadshow, which helped drive a vision in relation to clean energy, economic opportunities, and again, that philosophy was instrumental in some of the discussions we've had with such companies as Deep Sky and other potential investors regarding clean energy. We did have a list of community conversations about energy, and a lot of work with Equus and Fortis, etc. So again, more to come on this conversation. Cultivating investment projects, Power Play speaker series, as basically what I just mentioned. Council made it clear they wanted stronger focus on economic development, then providing resources in the hiring of an economic development officer, whom you met as John Powell. Housing assessment reports. The report was conducted demonstrating where on the housing continuum the town was weak in the housing, and it demonstrated how many houses were required by 2030 or 2033, somewhere in there, which then drove the council desire to move the Napoleon South project forward. But certainly we'll circle back on this report too, as it does tell the shortage of housing in Innisfil. The joint use agreements were completed with both school divisions, as well as the municipal development plan was updated. You're going to see this in the near future through the director about what is an MDP and how does it tie into the bigger vision of the community. But that's coming to you in the next few weeks. It's a big document and very, very important. Economic development event support policy. Council recently adopted that, I think a month or so ago. In progress, more diverse affordable housing, Southwest Industrial Land Sales and Promotion, CED program, Napoleon Lake South Residential Development Land Use Bylaw update, and CED website development. Moving into respect for environments. So council, following their strategic planning, and then actually even in advance of the the energy roadshow, council took a lot of effort to learn about energy transition. They took some training as with administration. Council developed an energy policy in relation to sustainability, but really were clear in their direction on using energy as stewards of land, but also using energy as economic opportunity in the clean energy space. So again, an important policy. It's really a philosophical policy, but it does create kind of a mindset of the organization onto council how we are advancing, and certainly it's an important policy for you to consider as you go into strategy to determine if you wish to continue on with that focus. As you can see, following suit is the climate initiatives, environmental sustainability, incorporating into asset management, the work of the SLT and their teams, facility condition assessments. There's work on our facilities and our infrastructure, not just what you heard last week through Director Kennedy on the state of infrastructure, but just making sure our facilities are understood for their life cycling and make sure we understand what level of investment is required for our facilities. water conservation rebate programs based on some threat of water shortage and the drought. There was some effort by the town, but also the Water Commission to develop water conservation discussions, as well as the drought, they asked for the next one too. And we know about the asset management plan and planning. In progress, these Southwest Industrial Solar Farm, so spend a second on this. So part of the industrial subdivision, there's a parcel in there that is not to be developed. You cannot remove, it's a brownfield in a sense. So very limited opportunity for development. So part of the initiatives we looked at, developing a solar array. I think it's 2 megawatt, Director Kennedy, 2 megawatt. To be funded by the town with a rate of return, which was pretty significant at that time. Now that the market has changed, it's not as, the ROI is not as significant, but we do have the approvals through AUC, the Alberta Utilities Commission, to advance the project. So everything's been approved, but based on the will of council and the advice of the administration, it's something we can consider down the road within a 5-year period. So it's there. It may create other opportunities as we explore what it could be used for, but there's potentially investment opportunity in the future. Clean Energy Improvement Program. So you'll see this over the course of your term, council, just on SEEP, Clean Energy Improvement Program, where municipalities through a bylaw can develop clean energy or energy-related programs such as solar on residential housing, where the town through, I think it's still through FCM, AB Munis, even the funding. Yeah, so through AB Munis program, through a town bylaw, but funding through FCM, I believe that we can receive funding. So I could, with my house, I could apply to, if we had the proper bylaw and everything in order, I could apply to the town through the bylaw to get solar onto my house and pay it back through my property taxes over a length of period of time, if that makes sense. So we have not advanced that too far, just more of exploratory research at this given time, but there's probably about 8, 10, 12 municipalities in Alberta that are doing this program. Green Initiatives Program. So this is something quite complex from the way I look at it, but the town recently went into a partnership or an agreement with a company. It's called the Extended Producer Responsibility Program. Director, I need you to speak to this one if you don't mind.
Sure. So the program, Extended Producer Responsibility. So really it brings all the producers into play. So the actual manufacturers of the products. What they have is a pro or another kind of layer, I guess, that takes responsibility of those products and then tracks it on a government level now, instead of each individual municipality kind of responsible for their own recycling and making sure it gets to where it needs to be instead of the landfill. Now it's an actual government-run program through the Extended Producer Program, and it's a higher level of tracking that has our pro circular materials responsible for making sure that material is actually getting recycled instead of just getting farmed into the landfills. Because before there was no accountability, we were doing it. It was going into a MRF program or a manufacturer recycling program, but there was really no tracking to make sure after that, where was it going? So what this program does is it gives that higher level tracking that material is actually then getting circulated back into the material, into the system. So complex program, we can definitely bring it back for more information if you're interested. But we are in the first year of that program with circular materials.
Through to
Councillor
Director Mayor Barclay, through to Director Kennedy. Has there been any indication from the government of Alberta that they'll start to include glass recycling in any of this program?
I'm unaware of glass right now in the program. They are looking to expand the program But yeah, we haven't heard of any of the new additions into it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director. And last section, provide strong leadership. As you can see, there's been a few policies that have been put in place. The reserves policy, which you'll see in the near future, the description of each of the reserves and the totals, and what funding is recommended to achieve the optimal balance. Investment policy, adopted policy and bylaw modernization updates, so if there's a list there for your review. Launch of the online public engagement platform. Does that involve Innisfil? The 2025 municipal election, and then a service request tracking system. So next meeting, Councillor, you're going to see a policy on public complaint or public service inquiry policy. And then a little bit more detail on what the Q alert system is. As we advance into updating the town website, there'll be more reference to the Q alert, which is a new program from just a few months ago. But it is a mechanism for council and community to access services, and it goes into a system that is tracked and put to the proper place in the organization for a streamlined process to respond to community requests for information or service. In progress, bylaw and policy review. So I'll stop there, Council. If there's any questions on any of these for more detail, I'll be happy to answer your questions.
All right, thanks, CEO Becker. Does anybody have any questions on any of those items? No? If not, I'll just have a motion then that we accept the report as information. Councillor Hill.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I'll make the motion that council accepts this report as information.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. We will now go into 3.3 with Director Vickers and the procurement policy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I do have before you our procurement policy, number 2016-004. It was approved back in January of 2016, and it really just guides the way that the town of Innisfil and the town staff go through and do all of our procurements. It does reference quite a few pieces of legislation, namely the Municipal Government Act. It does reference privacy legislation, but the big one is the new West Partnership Trade Agreement that kind of outlines all the rules and requirements, and our purchasing policy basically kind of mimics a lot of those things, as well as the Canadian Free Trade Agreement as well. So within the policy, administration is only allowed to purchase anything if it falls under kind of a number of conditions. The biggest one is that it must be already pre-included in the annual budget that council has already pre-approved. And it can't be over, right? So if we have a purchase of, say, $15,000 in there, it's in the budget for $15,000, we can go buy it. If it comes in at over budget, we then have to ask for further guidance. The type of goods and services also has to be the same, whether we've purchased or leased it, things like that, and the value does have to be less than $75,000. In order to help support that, within the policy, it does kind of outline what different levels of employees can make at different purchase levels. So for example, any full-time employee is able to make a purchase for up to $1,000. So this is things like they can go to co-op and buy new gloves or things if they need to, or you know, they're told to go buy nuts and bolts or things like that. That kind of gives them that authority to do that. Up to that $10,000 limit is any manager or supervisor, so they have a little bit higher authority to look deeper within the budget and see what's needed, and they do have a little bit higher authority. Up to that $75,000 is the CAO or any director, so you see some of those larger purchases. Any CAO or director can authorize those. Once we're a penny over $75,000, now that purchase has to come back to council for formal approval, regardless if it's within budget or not. And there is reasons for that. We do have thresholds. So if you've probably heard us reference APC before, which is Alberta Purchasing Connection. So within the new West Trade Partnership Agreement, it kind of outlines the thresholds on whether or not we have to do public advertising or if we can just get formalized quotes, direct quotage. Up to $1,000 within our policy, you can purchase it based on basically a verbal quote. So that's you walking into the co-op store, there's a price on the thing, you can buy it, that's your verbal quote. Anything between $1,000 and $10,000, you do need one written quote. So that can be as simple as an email from a vendor or a formalized quote, but you only need one. And again, you need manager or supervisor's approval to go with that. 10,000 to 75,000, now this is written in the newest trade partnership agreement. A minimum of 3 written quotes must be obtained. And again, because it's that higher number, approval by a director or CAO is required. Once you get over $75,000 for goods and services, you do have to do public advertising. And this is done through APC as well as on our own public websites and things like that. Anything, and construction has a different value. We cap it at 75,000, so we don't kind of maintain that separation. So anything over 75,000, it comes to council and we publicly tender, right? So there are definitely some times where these thresholds don't work, that we just can't get quotes. So there is some emergency purchasing that we're allowed to do. If any kind of emergency happens, the CAO is able to, through when an emergency is set, the CAO is able to take and do purchases outside of this policy in order to fulfill the needs of dealing with that emergency. The policy also outlines any rules and responsibilities that our own contractors have to abide by when we hire them. And that's our responsibility when we're hiring staff to make sure that these kind of things are identified and followed through. One being that they have appropriate insurance coverage for all of their staff, that they have proper WCB clearance, and as well as any provincial or federal legislations or any other laws that require them to have anything, including a Town of Innisfil business license, as well as proof of an effective health and safety program. So it is a responsibility for contractors to follow all of these, any laws that they're supposed to follow, but we are supposed to double check and follow up on that. Again, so the exemption's there. So sometimes it doesn't always follow either through an emergency or through other scenarios. So for example, when you guys are purchasing, you're going away to a conference and you're getting hotel costs. So a lot of those travel or accommodation things, you don't need, you're going to a specific place. There's only one vendor that can kind of serve you there. When there's only one supplier that's available to meet the needs, so this can be something as simple as our insurance, right? We go to one vendor for our insurance for the town. That kind of stuff doesn't need to go out for tender right now, right? When we actually go to a public tendering process and there are no bids, so this actually happened for the first time just a couple months ago. We put a tendering out for the shallow utilities for our Napoleon South, thank you. And no one, well, we did have one bidder. They did not qualify based on the terms and conditions that we set. So then there was no acceptable bids. So once that happens, we're able to now direct source. That means we can go source out a vendor that actually can qualify for us, and we can direct source that. And there is some exemptions within the newest partnership trade agreement or any other legislation that's in there. So there is a small portion at the back of our policy that does talk about a local preference. So within the policy, it says that if a local competitor is kind of equal to or better than an external vendor, but their price is a little bit higher, where the policy allows us to give a 5% discount to the local vendor and then see where they fall in our grading to see if then that would give them kind of a little bit of an edge up. It is only a 5%. So yeah, we are going to be doing a review early next year. So some of the language has changed. There is no more FOIP anymore. It's different privacy language. We need to update that. What's referenced in our policy is the AIT, which is the Agreement on Internal Trade. That has been updated to the CFTA, which is the Canadian Free Trade Agreement. So we do need to go through and do some updates just on some language, making sure that we're very, that the legislation hasn't majorly changed.
Okay, thank you, Director Vickers. Also, you've done some education in the past to the community on APC, on how the purchasing connection works. And
yes, Mayor Barclay, we have done that before. It's been a while, so I don't know if
might there
there's
be
some
time to do it again?
Yes,
in
there's some
your
need to
spare
do
time.
another- Yeah, spare time.
Also, I'm curious, when you're reviewing the procurement policy, if there'd be an opportunity to look at a section on community benefit agreements. So I know some municipalities have, it's optional, but if a company is awarded a contract and they have the option to donate some of that or make a donation to the community, say, for example, to recreation. So I'm wondering if we could maybe take a look at something like that and kind of integrate, not that it would be a have-to thing and it wouldn't become part of the scoring if you do or don't, but it's there as an option.
Mayor Barclay, definitely I can tag it, and when we do our review, we can include that in and make sure we're looking at what council would like for sure.
Yeah, I just think of elemental energy and, you know, what they bring to the community. If we can do a few things like that would be beneficial for sure.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions for Director Vickers on anything? Everybody's so quiet today. All right, if not, I'll just have someone make the recommended motion then.
Mayor Barclay, I'll move that council accepts the report as information.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And then we'll move into 3.4 with budget with Director Vickers.
I'll take this one, Mayor Barclay. Certainly I add into the director's report from last week, which taken that information to attach to this report. Basically, this report, council, is a pre-budget discussion item, knowing it may be challenging for new council to communicate budget expectations, with several of you not having the great experience of going through the municipal budget process. This report does give council the opportunity to share with each other what they heard during the engagement through their election campaign. As per the report, there's a list of questions I've asked you to consider. Again, if there's anything in there you don't want to entertain, or if there's other questions you wish to ask, certainly ask council to consider looking into you as council members respectfully and have a conversation. I encourage you to have a conversation about what you heard leading into the election, and then maybe we can form it into applying it into the budgetary process.
All right, thank you. So, of course, last week we talked about this a little bit, that everybody would have something ready this week to talk about what they heard. So I'm going to put Councillor Hill on the spot, and I'll start with him today and give us some feedback.
No problem. So obviously there's obviously lots of positive things. It was not always the doom and gloom and negativity. Some of the biggest things obviously was the buzzing just around the pool. And as far as when you start looking at the information I was privy to at the time, I didn't have a great extensive knowledge on that. So a lot of it was kind of just bear with us, and we'll get you more when I know more. But some of the items that kind of popped up, I guess, would have been kind of around, you know, our community events and how, you know, how we're being perceived to be involved. And previously being on council, I know that was always, there seems like there's always something on the go. So it's very hard to attend absolutely everything all the time. And I think that was obviously a focus, that people want to see the councillors out and about more, which is fair. But obviously maybe they're not at the events where all the councillors are. So that's pretty well all I have to add to that, Mayor Barclay.
Okay, so I have to drill down a little bit. So I'm curious about community events and what we're missing from, considering.
Yeah, I think it's the comparison is that, you know, there was really only about probably a very small group of people that they see. I don't know if they had moved from a larger community where they had their own barbecue trailer and they had their own big flashy expensive, you know, the town rolls out with the you know, the tables, the chairs, this, that, all the swag and all the different stuff. And I think that was maybe something that maybe they were expecting. Not saying that that can't happen, but obviously all those little frilly, fancy, shiny things cost money. But I think that was one of the things that they, they see. Oh well, why don't they? You know, and yeah, a lot of it was something along like the lines of I guess that would get as specific as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just so you know, we did have a community member donate a barbecue to the town, or two barbecues actually, and they're housed at the fire hall, and after Director Leith tried to start one on fire a couple of years ago. but
Yeah,
that's,
and don't get me wrong, it wasn't, you know, a lot of it was just, throughout the election campaign was just, you know, well, what are you gonna do differently? Obviously, one of the, I guess the last item, since that was on there is, you know, some of the items around, you know, potential transient people kind of along the highway, certain hotels in town kind of posing an issue, and you know, there's not a lot of people don't educate themselves on, you know, all the facts. They just kind of start to cast judgment and a lot of assumptions. So yeah, like I said, that's kind of what came my way.
Yeah,
so
good, thanks. Councillor Strong.
Next to you, wasn't it? Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, I heard a lot about the swimming pool. I think everybody did. I think the big thing I heard was property taxes and just a better explanation. We learned a lot at Alberta Munis last week to help get that, but sometimes people just, the citizens don't seem to have a strong understanding of why the property taxes. It's almost like they relate it, the swimming pool's going, your taxes are going up. On, you know, at Alberta Munis, we learned a lot about the Alberta government, what they put in there, and I just think maybe some, and it was in the strategic plan that CAO brought up earlier there about the strategic plan, a better community enhancement. So I think it all kind of ties together to get that message out there. You know, death and taxes are two common things in life, but maybe just a bit more of an explanation around why it's going up, I think would be what we heard the most. And yeah, the hotel that Councillor Hill referred to definitely was the third big thing.
Okay, no, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I heard similar issues or concerns relative to communications, which is, as we've discussed so many times, such a big challenge. Heard concerns from citizens regarding the condition of roads and potholes and snow removal. Some people think we have too much snow removal. Some people we don't have enough. So I don't know where the balance is there. I think we do a good job of it. But taxes, yes, and I would agree with Councillor Strong. I think there's a lack of understanding, which ties back into our communication conversation. I did have several conversations with people about retail. So, you know, are we situated in a place where we can't attract retail, or does the town need to do anything to make ourselves more attractive or appealing to retail? Yeah, that was couple of conversations. Housing, I think, though, was the biggest one and remains one of the largest concerns from my perspective. I am so happy with the report that we did that outlines sort of that housing continuum that we have, so we understand what generational needs or generational expectations are relative to housing. Seniors, there's still a large number of seniors in our community that are looking for where they will go next. That is not necessarily supportive living. So what are some of the beyond lodges, what are some of the opportunities that we might engage in as a municipality in attracting some of the other seniors housing organizations? Of course, every senior that moves out of their house puts a house up for sale for somebody else. So that trickle-down effect relative to that is important. So, you know, I didn't have an awful lot of unhappy people approach me. And everybody was very reasonable to talk to about what their concerns were. Safety relative to the hotel we were just talking about. You know, when we talk about the housing continuum and affordable housing for some people, there's a couple of institutions in our community that serve some of those folks. So anyway, yeah, I look forward to the budget. Thanks.
Right. Thank you. Councillor Heistad.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. You know, some of these highlights are similar. I'll go to the housing piece that had come up, especially with some seniors in our community that are moving out of their homes and looking at options. And I think that Southwest development, hopefully we can have more housing that is more suitable for our seniors in our community. But that came up a number of times. I heard lighting, and walking paths and stuff like that. And if there's ways to, to have more solar lighting in some certain areas in town, that would, make it safer early morning or late at night because, our winter months. I think the big thing for the communication piece with us, I think we did I felt that we did a pretty good job with making sure that we were talking about budget and educating, and I'll say the seniors center, we did a really good job of engaging the seniors. I think there's an opportunity to engage young people, like young families, on how the budget works and how we have so much funds in our community. And I think that there's a miss there. At the library, we only had 8 people. So, doing something live or online where people can watch us, and they don't even have to watch it live, but if the video's there and they can listen to it, I think that will help. But I see this as maybe there's quarterly engagements where I'll use it. Donnie Hill is the king of the door knockers. He started that like 8 years ago, right? 7-8 years ago. I think if we advertise in different ways in different mediums where we're engaging on the budget, I think that helps us overall. And then the last piece to the safety, I think the BASA report with this new council, when we have that opportunity to talk about safety, I think that is a piece that we need to. I think there's been a lot of good work in the last 6 years, 5-6 years with that police committee. But how do we as council help having those conversations about safety, especially in those, those couple of those motels in our community where we know there's issues, and how do we work best with those citizens that live close to those areas? So, but that's what I picked up on. So pretty long-winded, but thank you, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you. Councillor Russell.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. I heard some similar things. Housing did come up, senior housing. Some seniors looking to downsize and not really many options there. And a few actually mentioned that they'd love to stay in Innisfail, but if those options aren't there, they're going to look at other communities. So we may be losing some of our seniors because of that lack of availability. Something to consider. I know you mentioned one development that could maybe help with that. Communication was brought up, and I don't doubt that there have been many attempts to communicate in lots of different ways, but that always comes up. And I did hear it. I think part of it is lack of pursuing ways to get that information on some individuals, but it's always something we can look at improving. I did hear taxes, so it came up as a concern, and part of this was, first of all, not understanding the education portion, which had a significant increase that was not as a result of council. It was the government that increased that, but there's also the property taxes. And I think people understanding, there was the increase in assessment value, which hits you on your property taxes, and then you have the increase of whatever was approved by the council. So it's a double whammy that some people are saying it wasn't what it ended up being a 0.6, I think in the end is what maybe, or what was budgeted was less. It came in less than what was budgeted in the original budget, but the actual dollar increase was more on their taxes because of that increase in assessment. So the understanding of that portion of it. Utility costs came up a few times in regards to both water and electricity, and some of that is out of our control, but it is something that was certainly raised. A few people mentioned costs of borrowing. So when we do borrow, there are interest charges. So taxpayer dollars go to paying interest rather than being able to budget ahead. So that was brought forward. And in one particular area of town, I had concerns expressed about purchasing a home thinking it was a green space going to be behind them, and then it was zoned. And development happened. So that did come up, and whether it was zoned that way or not, I'm not clear on, but maybe there's something we can do in communication with even our local real estate agencies to make sure they're aware of what spaces are zoned for in the area that you're buying when they're taking people through homes. So.
All right, thank you. Councillor McKellar.
Well, Mayor Barclay, I'm hearing very similar comments from the one I seen when I was out talking to people. The big one that really resonated with me, and it's not because of my age, but it's the 55-plus community, they called it. With some people, that's a residential district with single-family dwellings or detached, which are easily accessible and very simple to manage. So that one come up. One of the things that continually surfaced on my radar, we talk about having a very age-friendly community. For seniors, yes. I wasn't getting the same message on youth. How do we increase that? How do we improve that? I didn't have the answers. I can only build on the foundations that exist today. But that resonated very, very loudly with me. And following that, of course, somebody come along and had a great capital investment they wanted me to build for them. It was a field house or a community center. No promises, that's not where I was at, but those were some of the things I was hearing. One of the things that Councillor Russell spoke about, and I think was very important, was taxes, how that assessed value equates to increased taxes. And again, that all falls back to communications, and communications is a very personal thing to all of us, because we all got the best way we think we know how to communicate. But I think that's one thing from a council perspective we need to look at and work towards. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. I think my colleagues around the table have covered most of this.
All right, thank you. So one conversation I had, it was actually post-election forum, was around youth. And, you know, I know in the Bassaw report, there was certainly a focus on youth and, you know, what we can do, I guess, to provide more engagement with youth. To me, maybe it's not us sitting around the table that needs to determine that. It's the young people in this community that need to determine that and work with them to figure that out. And it kind of came out of a conversation around the fire cadet program, actually. And you know, I mean, in some ways, there's lots of things to do in the community, particularly if you're sports-minded. But what else do kids like to do? And you hear a lot about a youth center. You talk to some parents, and oh, my kid would never go to a youth center. And you talk to others, and they think that would be the best thing since sliced bread. So, again, I think it's going back and, you know, maybe into the schools or something and determining that as opposed to us sitting around this table. Certainly property taxes, we did have a significant assessment increase last year. I'm guessing could be fairly significant this year as well. I think, you know, as we know, the pressures, the financial pressures, I have talked about this time and time again, the financial pressures that are on municipalities right now are significant. And how do you fund everything with the enormous escalating costs that we've seen the last 5 or 6 years, and without having tax increases when we've seen government funding go one way and inflationary costs certainly go the other way. So, you know, it's a matter when we get into budget, it will be up to us to determine, you know, what the increase will be. And, you know, maybe it gets to a point where we need to start looking at cutting services if people want to continue to keep the taxes low. I know that I believe our residential taxes are around the 50th percentile in the province, but our non-residential are probably in the bottom 15 percentile, so very, very low for sure. But, you know, people never like tax increases, but at the same time, I think it's just a matter of that, I mean, that's what funds the operation of the town, and that's what runs this corporation, our taxes. And I think, you know, we've done a good job of communicating our challenges and everything, but, you know, it's not always easy. It's a huge topic. I also had questions around our equipment purchases versus leasing on some of our big ticket items. I know Director Kennedy was involved in that. Understanding water, wastewater rates, the fact that those come from two commissions, and we don't necessarily have control. We do add a small piece onto that to go into our reserves to be able to fund infrastructure upgrades. What else? Yeah, public engagement. Downtown came up, retail, that it's interesting. I look at housing, I look at retail. We live in a completely different environment than we did 30 years ago, and to attract, a retailer into the core of downtown Innisfail, is that even realistic in this day and age of online shopping and big box stores? And 30 years ago we didn't have a Costco 15 minutes away, and so things have changed so much, and I think just really understanding that retail landscape. I know when we did our work with 13 Ways, and of course Heather Thompson, who at the time was with the U of A School of Retailing, brought a lot of insight into that area. But yeah, it's not always safe. We all want to go back to the good old days with all the shopping, but not sure that it would ever happen again, just because the environment in which we live in, and it's just so convenient for people to do it other ways. I think that the downtown core, of course, we had the fire this last term that took out the Globe building, so it's left a bit of a gap. Not sure what's happening with the building next to that, and if that has to come down, what does that mean? So, I have heard from downtown business owners that I visited with, they would like to see more people downtown, and of course, again, going back to the 13 Ways work, Doug Griffiths talked about that a lot, and getting residences downtown. Seniors housing, without a question. Having a lot of engagement with Healthy Aging Alberta, it's interesting because the surveys they have done over the last few years, almost 100% of people do not want to move out of their houses and into something else. But how do you support them in the community? I know there's a lot of work going on with the government of Alberta right now to provide those supports in the community, but we are losing people who have lived here a long time into Red Deer. And I think just the housing market in general has changed again, just like retail. Nowadays that buyer could be the single career woman, it could be the senior, the 55, 60 plus person that's downsizing and wants a different lifestyle. It could be all sorts of things, so it's not necessarily mom and dad with the 2.4 kids like it was in the 70s or 80s. So, ensuring that we are knowledgeable and up to date about, what that market is wanting. And I think the Southwest Residential will fill a bit of that gap, but it's certainly not going to fill the whole gap. And to answer Councillor Russell's question, yes, that was always zoned residential, that area down in there. It's a long story. 25 years ago, there was a resolution that was made to turn it into green space, but the rest of that work was never done at the time for whatever reason, and it never got done. And we really got to the point where we were really needing housing, and so it was a difficult decision. It took a few months to get to, but we determined to do that Southwest residential area and turn it into housing. But we were aware that it certainly didn't sit well with some people, without question. So I think pretty common themes that we've heard, and I think also Director Vickers, you're kind of, the fourth question, kind of that, maybe thinking about do you want to talk about where we like to see our taxes land right now, or do you want to leave that completely for budget? Because maybe it's better when we have the information in front of us as opposed to just throwing a number out there blindly right now. And
it's really up to your question, Mayor Barclay. It's whatever you're comfortable doing, because I know any increase of taxes, there's a message that goes with that. Because it's the first budget of council, we want to give that opportunity to set targets. And if no target is achieved, it will come what we feel we need administratively, operationally to move forward based on previous council's strategic objectives, i.e. asset management and funding of reserves. So they'll likely be in this budget, but council can adjust that based on your discussion. But it's up to you. If you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. If you feel comfortable to set a target, that's also fine.
Yeah, Councillor Heistad and then Councillor Russell.
Yeah, just on this last piece, I think it's best to talk about this in our deliberation and work and have our administration have enough time to make sure that we're well prepared as a group. That's where I sit on this one. To me, we could be going back and forth on this, and I think that's where I sit on this, is we have time to get all our ducks in a row and have the full conversation with these upcoming budget deliberations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Russell?
I'd agree with Councillor Heistad, but I mean, I think if any of us were asked that question, the least amount of tax increase or even a decrease in tax would be something we'd love to see, but not possible, right? But I wouldn't want to put a number out there. What I would like to see, and I haven't gone through the budgeting process before, so this would be interesting to go through, but some scenarios. So this is, if we were to reduce or only have our taxes at this level, this would be the impact and what services could potentially be impacted by that. If we wanted to decrease it by 1%, I think it was $100,000 is like a 1% tax increase was mentioned. So what would that mean? What services or what facilities could be impacted by that? And those type of scenarios would be things I'd like to see when we're deliberating through it. And it's probably already there, but you asked for what I'd like to see. So
Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, and it is. They usually come in with some different scenarios and present those. And of course, we always end up cutting things that the wants versus the needs necessarily. Did you have anything to expand on that, Director Vickers, or no?
No, Mayor Barclay and Council, just having kind of your thoughts of where you like to sit with taxes does kind of prepare us for what we do actually present to you, right? Because we present what we want. And then you're going to tell us what you want. And then we get sent back into a room and then we come back and say, okay, these are the changes we made. So just kind of trying to circumvent that a little bit, that's all. So.
Sure. And I would imagine that we probably all feel the same as Councillor Russell, minimal possible, and yet we have to keep the town operating and we have to make sure our reserves are healthy and, all sorts of things. So that the proverbial balancing that we always have to do. So, okay. No numbers. Anything else anybody wants to add? Councillor Wing?
Thank you. Yes, just a thought, and relative to some of the scenarios that we always enjoy seeing. Just some thought around, we've made over the last term some significant investments in technology, and I'm curious about whether or not some of that is actually making us more efficient. So if we can have some kind of a conversation during budget around what we're noticing from an impact on staff perspective relative to some of that stuff. Thanks.
All right, if there's nothing further, I'll just have somebody please make a motion that we receive the report as information. Councillor Strong.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I recommend that Council receives the report as information.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And we'll go on to 3.5 with our public participation policy with Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So just looking to provide council with a bit of an overview of both our public participation policy, as well as we have a bylaw related to alternative methods of advertising, and then just some general information about various communication activities that we do undertake. So we do have a public participation policy that was first adopted back in 2018. The policy is based on the IAP2, so the International Association of Public Participation Spectrum, which sort of ranges from informing the public all the way to full-on empowering them to make decisions. So most of our communications tends to be in that informing, consulting part of the spectrum, and with various projects we then evaluate what the project is, what type of feedback we would want, and then looking for various options to achieve that. As council's aware, most of our RFDs include a communications section where we outline what our intended channels and how we intend to do that, where we have the opportunity for council to provide input there as well. Some of our more collaborative projects, the municipal development plan that was completed in the last year, or it was a longer process than that, included a sort of ad hoc community advisory committee. We use our various committees for input to award grants. There's been talk today about the policing committee and the community safety and well-being plan, so that also had some more extensive public engagement. So again, we work through that based on the process and the way that public participation policy reads. We also have the bylaw 1644 that was adopted in 2020. This was in response to some changes to the MGA. So this does identify the town website essentially as our primary means of advertising statutory things, so things that we're required to provide notification of. We still utilize the newspaper, we utilize mailouts, we utilize those channels, but from a sort of legal legislative perspective, our website is our the primary notification tool. We've then also attached a communications framework and inventory, which provides sort of a full sort of the full gamut of what our communications department focuses on, the various channels that we utilize, and how they do their work. One of the big changes in 2025 was the creation of our Involve Innisfail website. So this is a new platform that allows us to do more robust online engagement. We can create projects and we can really tailor the type of engagement, whether that's surveys, whether that's asking people to put comments down, whether that's asking people to put dots on a map, those types of things, that we're able to do more of that. And we're able to do it in a, people don't have to show up at an open house from 6 to 8 on a Tuesday. They can go and do that at their leisure, get the information and process it that way. So we're able to reach sort of a wider swath of people. Any of you have been to some of our public open houses, the same people come to our public open houses regardless of the topic. So trying to get some of those other voices is definitely a big part of that. We also have the town app, which was launched a few years ago, where we're able to do some of those real-time updates that the app is quite useful for, whether that's, you know, snow removal, pool closures, things like that, where people can get those more instantaneous notifications. Just some sort of highlights through that communication. Our website, we do have some pretty good engagement and usage of our website. So in the last 90 days, we've had over 20,000 views on our website page. Typically, our most popular page is the Aquatic Center schedule. That's down right now, but that is one of the primary things. Indoor public skating, garbage and recycling, events, those tend to be the real careers that people hit the webpage. The election was a big one this past year. So yeah, continuing through, as has come up in some of your reflections on your campaign, yeah, communication is always going to be there. We continue to try to educate and come up with those different ways of reaching folks. But again, how to do that and doing it on an ongoing basis. I think sometimes we kind of, oh, we're going to educate about this, but forgetting that we probably need to do that every 6 months to catch the next people who are interested. So really just intended for information. If anybody has questions or comments, take those.
All right, thank you, Director Jenkins. Does anybody have any feedback for Director Jenkins? I'm curious, Director Jenkins, the involve.ca, there's such great information on there, especially around the Aquatic Center project with updated photos and whatnot. I think you said last week, was it 35 people registered?
35 people on the Aquatic Center page, so through various projects.
So can you see, maybe it's a kind of question, can you see the clicks on the page, like the views of the page, like without necessarily, because you can go see it without being registered. You won't, correct. You just won't get the update unless you're registered. correct?
Mayor Barclay, I'm not sure if we can actually look at the click-throughs on the page. Like when we pull a report on URLs, we go through the Google Analytics. The Google Analytics is not tied into that page, but it is something I can look at through the service provider to see if they can do that. I will say we did have a bump in people signing up for the pool just last week because we did push out a social media message about that. So that number has actually bumped a bit at the last, since the numbers I provided to Director Jenkins.
Okay, no, good.
And we've been utilizing it since January, so, and we do, the land use bylaw, that's one that we're gonna utilize, Engage for. We used it for the public art, the bike park, so it's something that different departments are starting to become more comfortable with, and it does allow some, a little bit more interesting ways to engage people. It's not either just a survey, or that we can, get people to vote for things or get people to even provide some of those open-ended questions where we're able to analyze that more thoroughly.
Yeah, good. I remember, it was maybe last term, maybe the term before, I did take an IAP 2 session, and I'm familiar with it through some other stuff I'd done, but one thing that resonated with me was, setting that expectation around public engagement. So, it's part of the process, but it's not necessarily the be-all, end-all of the process, and the information, obviously, the feedback is so important, and yet you're going to have, 100 different answers, right, on whatever subject matter. So, kind of keeping that in perspective and setting those expectations. I go back to the journey through multiplex, new aquatic center, etc. And we always went out, what do you want? And we all want we all want all of it. Of course we do. And then you have to lower those expectations, and that's when people get disappointed. So, I heard feedback, well, you should have gone back out and with the one change room. But if you would have gone back out, what do you want? Well, it would have been 3, and we can't accommodate that. So it kind of would have just disappointed again. So it's a matter of how do you manage all that and ensure that, you're doing the public engagement, but at the same time, ensuring that the public understands that it's an important part of the process for sure, but we also, sadly at this table, we're the ones that are tasked with making the difficult decisions in the end, and a lot of it, of course, is financial constraint. And
I think that's the value of that spectrum as well, that even when we're doing the communication, that we're clear that for this topic, we're just telling you what's happening. We aren't asking. Or for this one, we're asking for your thoughts. Where, I know we've run into the aquatic center is a good example. Don't ask if you don't want the information in that way, or make sure that when you are asking the question that we're doing it in a way that the feedback is going to be helpful.
Yes.
The chicken survey is another
chicken
one,
survey,
right?
that was the best one,
highlights
the chicken survey. Yeah.
Do you want that, or what's the best way to get the feedback that you want? So.
We wanted it, and then we didn't. No.
And is yes and no
Yes.
a proper question in that case?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure, probably quite a craft to doing that. So, all right. Well, thank you, Director Jenkins. Anybody else have any questions for Director Jenkins?
Mayor
Councillor
Barclay
McKellar?
through to Director Jenkins. First of all, after I heard about Involve Innisfil, I went and looked it up last week because it's the first time I heard of it, and I did sign up. And I think it's a great medium to at least another communications tool that we can use. And I've talked to other people in town, and I've asked, have you seen Involve Innisfil? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? So I'm going to encourage its use. And again, it's one of many mediums we've got. So thank you for creating that one.
Yeah, and I think that's a good reminder, Councillor McKellar. We are all communication vehicles at this council table, and it's also up to us to make sure that we communicate those initiatives as well, and it can be very, very helpful. So, all right, well, I'll just have a someone make the recommended motion, please? Councillor Wing?
Mayor Barclay, I move to provide, no, sorry, that council accepts this report as information.
All right, thank you. That's okay. All in favor? All right, carried. I'll just go into correspondence and information. So the Johns Manville Christmas dinner is always a great dinner to go to. They provide community Christmas dinner. The staff cooks it all, and it's a big day for them. So I'll let you put that into your own calendars if you want to go. I'll just have a motion, please, that we accept the correspondence as information if there's no questions. Councillor Hill.
Yes, I would make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Then we'll go into upcoming, or no, we'll go to the round table. Sorry, I was jumping ahead. Councillor Heistad.
I think the big one is today we were at A&P and we had to light up the Christmas tree the end of the week, and Alberta Munis, I thought it was a good event to go to. I think there were some good sessions that I had gone to. I think the one on there was one really good speaker from Bonnyville talking about stress and post-second PTSD that I went to. But overall, I thought AB Munis was a good team builder for our group and getting to know one of our, our fellow council members. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Councillor Russell.
Not much to add to that same events. I would like to have at some point a discussion of council about Alberta Municipalities Convention, but I don't think today is the time for that. But we also have a water commission, Mountain View Water Commission, just a orientation type online meeting tomorrow morning. Other than that, same as Councillor Heistad.
Okay, thank you. And maybe Councillor Russell, if you want to connect with CEO Becker about Alberta municipalities and what it is exactly, and whether that's a budget discussion or whatever, but bring that forward. Okay, thank you. Councillor McKellar.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, I too just wanted to mention the Alberta Munis Conference. I think it was a good team building event. I walked away from there, especially with the one breakout section around economic development in your community, and got quite excited about it and see that Innisfil's doing some great things in relation to that. So, and that comes from the previous council and with the administration. So that really left me quite excited and gave me a different perspective.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Hill.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barclay. I guess, NPC is canceled for tomorrow, unfortunately. There's not an agenda item, so I won't be able to have a report about that for next Monday, but I'll tell you that again. Alberta Munis was great experience once again. Did attend one of the RCMP breakout sessions that definitely was a really good refresher. I'm going to be serving on the Safe Communities and Policing Committee, so that was actually quite convenient. So I was appreciative of that. The last item that I think that everyone that attended, hearing the financial status of the province and what's available, what's asks to the ministries, all the ministers have their requests, and when you hear that there are tens of billions of dollars that are not going to be potentially available for filling a lot of the asks, it really does put things into perspective for us. Seeing what we're up against and hearing where the province is at and thinking that, hey, we're maybe got to be a little more creative in our grant writing, or maybe got to, what do we got to do? It does really make you realize that you can do everything right, but the funds just aren't there potentially. And not saying that we should stop, but it's an expectation that needs to be managed, and I think it's got to be out there that people don't take the time to educate themselves on where the financial status of the province presently is, and if that's going to change in the upcoming few years. We're not sure, but when they say we're going to be in a tough time, I think that needs to be echoed into the smaller municipalities as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Strong.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Barclay. I think to continue what Councillor Hill said, when the finance minister spoke about basically like all of our directors coming to us looking for budget money, he was talking about all his ministers doing that, and he said the pot's empty, so start with nothing and work your way up. It gives a new light to what we have to do during budgeting season, and I thought it was quite enlightening. It was I think he said the shortest amount, but the most prolific of what he spoke about was facing the same financial hurdles there. So as I said earlier, during campaigning, people talking about taxes and that, it's a little easier to go back after that. Also felt it was just a great team building event. I know Gary and I should not hang out if we're going to go do wine tasting.
Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I don't have anything to add, but I will have a full report for the next council meeting.
All right, thanks. I think going back to AB Munis, yeah, good event. The astronaut / emergency room physician / pilot made me feel somewhat inadequate what I've accomplished in my life, but that's all right. I also think, you know, they did talk about the information that they have been coming out with around finances and LGFF, and, you know, ensuring that we as a town and council share that communication, I think is very important. And we can talk about the rest at budget time, as far as there not being any money for anything over the next couple of years. Sometimes that comes down to choices. But anyway, we'll move on to upcoming events. I'll just have a motion that we accept the upcoming events as information, please. Councillor Russell.
Mayor Barclay, I'll make that motion.
All in favor? Carried. And then we'll just have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Wing.
Mayor Barclay, I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, thank you. Adjourned at 4:26. Thank you.